The 10 most beautiful American cars of the 70s. Have you ever noticed how the 1970s get remembered for disco balls, bell-bottom jeans, and gas lines? But if you ask me, the real stars of that decade were not on the dance floor. They were parked in the driveway. This was the era when Detroit rolled out cars so long they needed their own zip codes powered by V8 South big enough to make a gas pump cry. They were not just transportation. They were moving statements of style, wealth, and sometimes pure stubbornness against practicality. Some were bold, some were bizarre, but all of them left a mark. Think of them as rolling time capsules, monuments to a country that believed bigger was always better. Today, we are cracking open that garage of memories to look at the 10 most beautiful American cars of the 1970s. Buckle up and do not forget to like, subscribe, share, and tell us in the comments which one you would take home. 1975 Buick Electra 225. They did not call it the deuce and a quarter for nothing. 225 in of Detroit steel that made every driveway feel too small. This was not just a car. It was a rolling living room. Slide into one and you would swear you were back home on the couch, only missing the black and white TV buzzing in the corner. Under its endless hood lived a 455 cubic inch V8 rated at a modest 205 horsepower, but packing 345 pounds-feet of torque, enough to move its nearly 4,900 pounds bulk with surprising grace. Buick sold over 150,000 Electras in 1975, which means practically every dad in America had one parked out front. They used it to haul kids' groceries and the occasional ego boost. The steering wheel spun like you were stirring your morning coffee, effortless, almost too easy. The ride was butter smooth, so quiet you could whisper and still be heard. Of course, there was a catch. Fill the tank, take it for a spin, and by the time you rolled back into the driveway, you had already kissed a week's paycheck goodbye at the pump. Inside, plush seats, faux wood, and chrome accents gave it the vibe of a luxury lounge. The Electra 225 was not built for speed. It was built for presence, comfort, and the kind of over-the-top confidence only 1970s America could dream up. 1976 Cadillac Fleetwood Brougham, while the rest of America was sweating gas. Prices in 1976. Cadillac rolled out the Fleetwood Brougham, a 19.6-feet land monster that basically said, "Oil crisis, never heard of her." At a time when compact cars were starting to look sensible, this chrome-drenched giant doubled down on excess. Pull one up to the curb and suddenly everything else on the street looked like a child's toy. Parking it was not so much an errand as a city planning exercise. Beneath its endless hood sat Cadillac's famous 500 cubic inch V8. Detuned by the mid-70s to just 190 horsepower, but still producing a stout 360 pounds-feet of torque. Power was not the point the ride was. With its pillowy suspension and steering so light it felt like stirring soup. The Fleetwood Brougham did not drive, it floated. Every trip down Main Street felt like leading a parade, whether anyone was watching or not. Inside it was pure theater. Couch-like seats wrapped in velour or leather wood trim on every surface. Chrome-lined ashtrays, courtesy lights, and even optional illuminated reading lamps. Honestly, it was more luxurious than many apartments of the era. Cadillac built nearly 50,000 of these rolling palaces in 1976, proving that when it came to showing off American luxury, they were not about to downsize. Gas was expensive, sure, but Cadillac wanted the world to know the dream was still big, bold. An unapologetically extravagant 1974 Dodge Monaco, 1974 AMC Matador Coupe. If there was ever a car that looked like a concept that accidentally escaped the design studio, it was the 1974 AMC Matador Coupe. Penned by Richard Teague, the man brave enough to flip a finger at Detroit's design rulebook. This was AMC's loud announcement that they could be bold, too. With its wraparound windshield, thin chrome strip hiding the headlights and fastback-style profile, the Matador looked futuristic for the time. Or maybe just plain weird. Some people loved it, others wondered if AMC had lost its mind. Power came from several options, but the top dog was the 401 cubic inch V8 rated at 235 horsepower and 332 pounds-feet of torque. Not blistering, but plenty of muscle to move its 4,100 pounds frame with confidence. Thanks to its low center of gravity and surprisingly well-sorted suspension, the Matador handled better than its bulky look suggested. Inside, it was pure 1970s charm-padded panels, velour or vinyl seating, metallic accents, and a driver-focused dash that made you feel like you were piloting a concept car. AMC sold around 62,000 coups in 1974. Not a flop, but not a runaway hit either. More like a rock band with one memorable single. Pop culture gave it a boost when it appeared in The Man with the Golden Gun sprouting wings in a James Bond chase. But beneath the spotlight, AMC's attempt to stand out only reminded everyone how far it stood from the big three. 1976 Cadillac Eldorado. If there was ever a car from the 1970s that made you wonder whether you were driving a car or captaining a ship, it was the Cadillac Eldorado. Stretching over 224 in and weighing nearly 4,800 pounds, this was a land yacht in the truest sense. The kind where you could hang your elbow out of the wide pillarless window and pretend you were royalty cruising down the highway. Under the hood sat a massive 500 cubic inch V8, an engine bigger than the wildest dream of a long-haul trucker. Cadillac swore this would be the last convertible ever. Kind of like that uncle who swears he is quitting smoking but still sneaks a cigarette behind the garage. Officially, it only made 190 horsepower, which sounds like a lame horse. But with 360 pounds-feet of torque, it pulled like a freight train. And this was not just a car. It was history on wheels. Cadillac numbered each of the 14,000 convertibles built, turning them into instant collectibles, time capsules of American excess. Rumor has it some owners kept theirs wrapped in plastic, never driven, like bars of gold stashed away for the future. Inside it was pure lounge luxury, heated leather seats, automatic climate control, premium sound, and more space than a living room. The 1976 Eldorado was not just transportation. It carried the American dream itself. Flashy, indulgent, and larger than life. 1971 Buick Riviera. Some cars try to play it safe. The 1971 Buick Riviera, not a chance. This was the car that showed up to the party in a loud suit and dared everyone to stare. Its famous boat-tail rear end looked like a yacht on wheels, sleek to some, ridiculous to others. People argued then, and still do today, was it sexy, or did it look like a shark missing its tail? Either way, nobody walked past it without an opinion. Under the hood, Buick stuffed in a 455 cubic inch V8, pumping out 315 horsepower and a mountain of 450 pounds-feet of torque. For a 4,400 pounds beast, it could hustle 0 to 60 in under 8 seconds, which was quick for the era. The interior matched the drama wood trim, chrome leather, and a driver-focused dashboard that made you feel like a captain on the bridge of a very flashy ship. Here's the funny part. Buick got cold feet. The boat-tail was so radical that by the very next year, they started toning it down. But 1971 was the pure, unfiltered version, the wildest Riviera of them all. Some say design boss Bill Mitchell was just trying to annoy his GM bosses, unleashing a car so bold they could not possibly ignore it. Mission accomplished. 1972 Chevrolet Monte Carlo. The Monte Carlo was like that respectable neighbor who wore a suit to work, then showed up on Friday night with leather gloves and a lead foot. On the surface, it was refined, elegant, and even a little conservative. A two-door coupe with long lines, a stately grille, and Cadillac-inspired presence. But beneath the charm was a streak of rebellion just waiting for someone to press the pedal. The star of the lineup was the 454 in V8, officially rated at 270 horsepower and 380 pounds-feet of torque. That was more than enough to hustle this big personal luxury coupe down the quarter mile with authority. But Chevy offered smaller engines too. The 350s and 402s, because not every buyer wanted raw speed. Some just wanted comfort, and the Monte Carlo delivered it in spades with plush seating, wood grain trim, and an interior that felt like a lounge for the open road. Of course, plenty of owners could not resist unleashing its wilder side. Chrome trim got stripped off. Camshafts got swapped, and suddenly the gentleman's coupe was terrorizing drag strips. It was a car with a double life, sophisticated enough for Sunday drives with the family, yet fierce enough to take on challengers at the stoplight. Chevy knew exactly what they were doing. Selling luxury for the dads and secret muscle for the kids, all wrapped in one handsome package. 1975 Chrysler Imperial LeBaron. If Cadillacs were the kings of the boulevard, then the 1975 Chrysler Imperial LeBaron was the palace on wheels. Nearly 20 feet long, it looked less like a car and more like a rolling mansion. Opening one of its massive doors was like opening a double door refrigerator wide enough that you half expected the hinges to groan under the weight. Once inside, the seats were so plush they felt like they might swallow you whole. The kind of cushions that made sofa manufacturers nervous. Powering this colossus was a 440 cubic inch V8 rated at 215 horsepower and 317 pounds-feet of torque. Not a drag racer by any stretch, but the way it delivered power was pure silk. Thanks to Chrysler's torsion-quiet suspension, the Imperial glided down the road like it was riding on a red carpet. It did not so much drive as it floated, erasing every bump as if the asphalt had been ironed flat just for you. But here is the twist. 1975 was the last year the Imperial stood as its own brand. After that, Chrysler folded it back into the lineup as if erasing a royal bloodline. The LeBaron was not just a car. It was the final chapter of a dynasty quietly shuffled out of existence. Proof that even in Detroit, power and prestige can disappear overnight. 1972 Lincoln Continental Mark V. The Lincoln Continental Mark V was not just transportation. It was an entrance. At nearly 19 feet long and as heavy as a small mobile home, this was not the kind of car you parked quietly at the curb. It was the car that pulled up to the hotel valet and made the doorman stand a little straighter. With its wide chrome grille, hidden headlights, and that famous fake spare tire bulge on the trunk, the Mark V looked less like a coupe and more like a Hollywood star draped in sequins demanding attention, whether you liked it or not. Underneath all that drama sat a 460 cubic inch V8, officially rated at 224 horsepower and 360 pounds-feet of torque. Not blistering numbers, but here is the secret. Nobody buying a Mark V cared. This was not about drag races. It was about gliding. Thanks to Lincoln's ultra-soft suspension and heavy soundproofing, the Mark V floated across the pavement like it was riding its own personal red carpet. Even road noise was banished, leaving only the hush of luxury as you sank into lounge-style seats trimmed in faux mahogany and chrome. And that was the point. Lincoln was not selling a car. They were selling presents. Owning a Mark V was a declaration. I have arrived and you are going to notice. It was not horsepower that mattered. It was the spotlight. The 1974 Dodge Monaco was the definition of muscle disguised as a family sedan. On paper, it looked like your neighbor's car, the one parked outside with a baby seat in the back. But pop the hood and you had options ranging from a 5.22L V8 all the way up to a thunderous 7.2L big block, cranking out as much as 275 horsepower. For a sedan, that meant it could haul the groceries and still leave a patch of rubber at every stoplight. It was not refined. It was not elegant, and Dodge did not pretend it was. The Monaco was blunt force on four wheels. The kind of car that did not need chrome tricks or fancy interiors to make a statement. The design was square. The stance was tough. And the message was simple. I am big. I am strong. Get out of the way. Inside, it was functional rather than fancy. Durable upholstery, a basic dash, and enough space to stretch out without ever feeling cozy. But here is the twist. Hollywood turned this blue-collar sedan into an icon. When the Blues Brothers tore through city streets in the Bluesmobile, the Monaco went from retired cop car to silver screen legend. Dodge alone could not have pulled that off, but the movies did. A working man sedan suddenly became immortal. A cult classic born not in Detroit, but on the big screen. 1976 Chevrolet Caprice. Classic. If there was one car that earned the title official family car of America, it was the 1976 Chevrolet Caprice Classic. At nearly 19 feet long. It was not the flashiest or the most powerful, but it struck the perfect balance between size, comfort, and affordability. Under the hood, you had choices ranging from a 5.7L to a 6.66L V8. Putting out anywhere between 165 and 180 horsepower. Nothing wild, but more than enough to move this big sedan across the country without breaking a sweat. Chevy sold over 212,000 Caprice Classics in 1976 alone, which meant you saw them everywhere. Driveways, school parking lots, supermarket rows. Spotting one was as common as grabbing a Big Mac at McDonald's. The design was straightforward. Squared-off lines, twin headlights, a wide chrome grille, and a profile that said, "I am dependable, not dramatic." It was not glamorous, but that was exactly the point. Inside, the Caprice delivered everything a family wanted. Sofa-style seating in velour or vinyl, plenty of legroom, power steering, air conditioning, and even an AM/FM radio to make those long road trips bearable. It was not luxury in the Cadillac sense, but it was comfort done right. And here is the subtle genius Chevy quietly filled America's driveways with Caprices, turning them into part of the collective memory. For many, this car is not just history. It is childhood. And there you have it. The shining giants of the 1970s. Some were elegant, some outrageous, and a few downright impractical. But every one of them told a story about America's love affair with the automobile. These cars were not built just to get you from point A to point B. They were built to make an entrance, to spark envy, and to leave memories that still linger today. Now it is your turn. If you could park just one of these legends in your garage, which would it be? Drop your pick in the comments. And do not forget to like, share, and subscribe for more classic car stories.